What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
And today on The Great Debaters, we're going to be talking about one of, in our opinion, the most confusing and misrepresented rap battles of all time. We're talking about Canibus with second round knockout and LL Cool J with the Ripper Strikes Back. Great Debaters. Alright, Amir, so today on The Great Debaters we're doing a little bit different. We're picking our favorite song of two diss songs going at one another. And this is Canibus second round knockout, LL Cool J, The Ripper Strikes Back. And of course, this song, all this whole rivalry and beef, what have you, all started with the 4-3-2-1, which was on LL Cool J's 1997 album Phenomenon. And on that, you know, the stories are slightly different or what have you, but, you know, Canibus wrote his verse and allegedly LL rewrote, enhanced, whatever, to address some of Canibus's lyrics. You know, it depends who you ask or what you hear, but LL's story, to me, makes the most sense, of that he heard a great rhyme and then kind of responded to it a little bit, and he had the wherewithal, leverage, and if I recall correctly, it was actually his song, so he could do pretty much what he wanted to do with it. That being said, Canibus didn't like what LL said, and then in 1998, Canibus responds, and this is very important to explain. The song from LL, 4-3-2-1, came out in 97. Then it had DMX, Redman, Method Man, Canibus, and LL. And it's important, and I'm bringing it up because that song came out in 97, Canibus's response came out in 98, and I'm saying that to say that explains, like, we're in a totally different era where you could record a song and release it that same day. Back then, it took a while for things to happen because how studios were done, the politics of things, you know, writing the songs. People actually spend a lot of time to write songs, which they don't really do as much, it seems, anymore. So with all that groundwork being said, let's get to Canibus's second round knockout first because we're going chronologically. So Amir, second round knockout, Canibus comes out in 1998. What do you think of this track?
I thought it was great, man. I heard it. I was a little confused with the Mike Tyson in the beginning, but I was like, oh, it makes sense because, you know, LL delivered the first strike with the Excalibur line, and the mic on my arm is off to all challengers, so this is Canibus's response, and he knocked him out in the 3 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever. So I guess that made sense to me. But Canibus really comes out, and I think he kind of shocked people because he was pretty ferocious. He had a pretty strong song, and the beat was dope. He had Wyclef on here, he had Mike Tyson talking, and he had himself, and especially I think in the second verse where he goes and he says, "I stick you for your award in front of your first, second, and third born," and he's flowing and he's doing super well, and he even calls out LL and what he thinks are some of LL's things that, you know, maybe LL was hiding behind this screen, where he's saying, you know, you're smoking weed, you're doing coke, you're doing these things when you claim to be a drug-free role model. And Canibus even goes on to say that the main reason why you're still relevant or got all these record sales is because you have your shirt off in all your videos. You're kind of like just a good-looking dude, a sex symbol. So 99% of your fans were high heels, and even goes up to bring some of his past beefs like Ice-T and Mo D and Jay-Z, and now Canibus saying, like, I'm gonna add you to the list and you're losing this battle and whatever. So I think there's a lot of very clever, witty lines that Canibus says, especially with, like, he talks about a sitcom, you leave wait for the studio audience to applaud, and just all this stuff, and you even hear Mike Tyson saying you gotta eat, 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 and just, it's all these things, right, that Canibus sets up and does well and executes so well. And then the song's over, and then you're like, okay, when's LL gonna respond, right? So that's kind of what I thought. I thought it was great, and I was excited to hear what LL was gonna respond with. And we'll get to LL. I want to hear what Soren thinks first.
Yeah, when I heard second round knockout, I was impressed because growing up in Maryland and being on the East Coast and going up to New York a lot in the 96, 97, early 98 before I moved to LA era, Canibus definitely had a lot of buzz. People were excited about him, and usually to this point, LL's beefs were like with established rappers that had albums and lengthy careers, and in the case of really Ice-T and Kumo D that had been out before him. So this was kind of a changing of the guard of sorts, in the sense that Canibus was a new artist, emerging artist, and LL, in my opinion, had done him a favor by putting him on 4-3-2-1, regardless of what happened lyrically or changing lyrics, whatever in reality happened. Although I ride with LL's version of the story more than anyone else's, is that, you know, for a new artist to go at LL, I thought was very bold and also impressive. And then, like Amir was saying, I thought a lot of his lines and what he was saying was clever. Some of it I thought was pretty funny, and you know, but I also, and we're about to get into the LL side of it, but I also thought a lot of the logic and some of his cause and effect was a little bit flawed, and I think LL saw those openings in Canibus's lyrics. And then we're going to get to The Ripper Strikes Back, which came out clearly after Second Round Knockout. So Amir, LL Cool J, this is 98, so at this point LL has been rapping since really full-time since 85. So at this point in rap, it's 13 years, 14 years, and that by itself was unprecedented. So, and that's back in 98. We're in 2020. And the fact that LL, I've had the pleasure of being with LL in the studio and hearing him rap recently, to where he sounds phenomenal. And I hope that some of this material that he's been posting about, like I know he's working with Q-Tip and I know he's doing other stuff and he's posted with other people, that I hope some of this LL one day sees the light of day, that shows that his penmanship, his delivery, his ferocity is basically what it was in 85, 86, 87, 88, all the way up to whatever your favorite LL songs are. Like, he still has it. Like, he's still amazing. That being said, back to 98, that wasn't happening, man. Like, the people that Canibus had referenced, Kumo D, obviously a pioneer, a phenomenal rapper on his own accord, but he wasn't like super cracking in 98 as far as selling records, being popular, touring, being out there like that. Ice-T had transitioned and gone into acting, and clearly now is the longest running black actor in television history with Law & Order SVU, which is an amazing accomplishment. But rap wasn't Ice-T's focus, even though he still did it in 98. He had moved on and was focusing on film and television. LL also had done that, as Canibus referenced, with his In the House show, and then being in several films at that point. But the difference was LL was still much more active and still releasing platinum records and still collaborating, doing remixes, doing all kinds of stuff that really Kumo D and Ice-T weren't doing. And then Canibus is trying to get into the level of greatness that LL, Kumo D, and Ice-T would be looked at as. So that being said, The Rapper Strikes Back comes out. Now this is a reference, of course, to LL Cool J's famous song Jack the Ripper, which among other things, trash Kumo D. So now, Amir, when you heard The Ripper Strikes Back, let's get into this song. So what did you think and why?
You're gonna call me, you're probably gonna laugh what I'm gonna say, but I was like, there's no way that LL Cool J is gonna beat this song.
Referring to Second Round Knockout?
Yeah, no way LL Cool J is gonna beat Second Round Knockout, because it was solid. Like, it's got something for everyone, you know, kind of like the backpackers and the people who like mainstream rap. It's got a little something for everyone, and it's catchy, and he gets his flow on, and he was buzzing at the time. Like, and people like to root for the underdog too. You hear Ripper Strikes Back, and this is very interesting to me because kind of like how LL did with Jack the Ripper, how it was only on cassette. It was only on the cassette version of the album. It wasn't on the CD. It's kind of like
Walking with the Panther.
On Walking with the Panther. It's kind of like, for some reason, I don't know why, but these songs should have just been on the general album release. The Ripper Strikes Back was not on an album. Canibus was promoting Second Round Knockout like to the fullest. It had a video, it's got VHS, it's got CD, it's got everything. This just made it to, the Ripper Strikes Back made it to like some samplers, some random compilations. So it's kind of like, I know a lot of people probably didn't hear it. And if they did hear it, they didn't give it the same amount of listens as they did Second Round Knockout. So I say that to say, because I don't see a lot of people giving LL the props he deserves on this song. Because on this song, he literally, everything that Canibus said that was dope, that was clever, that was awesome, was literally, it's like it didn't even exist after LL. It's like he completely nullified everything.
Yeah,
every single thing that Canibus did. And he's laughing, but it's so true that...
I'm laughing because it's true.
It's literally every single thing Canibus threw his way. He's like, stop talking about the sitcom, you know you watched that, you read my book, you bought my book, like, stop doing bass yourself, like, just all these things.
Well, my favorite line, and possibly my favorite line ever in a rap song, is when he said, because Canibus had said 99% of your fans wear high heels, and LL responded to say 99% of your fans don't exist. I was like, dude, just stop the song now. It's over. Like, because Canibus, like when LL came back, Canibus basically had already flopped with what he was trying to do. And then that line is probably my favorite line in rap history. But then beyond that, you have him say, "Can I bust?" Yes, you can. And in the song, it's like, dude, he's using your name and breaking it into something that he's doing that's disrespecting you. And just those two things alone, I would have given LL the victory. But then when you go through and you look at what LL says, beyond that, like Amir was saying, like, yeah, I have a book, but you bought it to read it, to study. Yeah, I have a TV show that you're watching. It's like, you know, you could say his book's whack, you could say his TV show's not that good or whatever, neither of which I agree with. But if you do argue that, to reference them, Canibus didn't have a book, Canibus didn't have a TV show, Canibus had nothing. And like, you're gonna diss somebody that has stuff, but then you don't. You're more referencing them trying to be slick, whereas LL is slicker by saying you're studying me, which is the only reason you have anything against me, because I'm doing everything that you're aspiring to be. And that really also would end the diss if he just said that. But he went on and slaughtered this dude.
Dude, how many times in the song did he mention he's homeless or he needs to take a bath, but then LL's like, I'll give you a blood bath, and he says like, I'll beat your homeless ass down, and he says like all these things, and he says like Vanguard Awards for Kings Who Did Tours. Canibus isn't done, he hasn't toured anywhere. He even says like, you should be battling someone at a house party, you did verses at people's proms. Like, these are just things that are just so disrespectful, and that's what it comes down to when you diss. LL says faggot throughout the song, and it's just all these things is just like such an insult. He doesn't only go at Canibus. This is what, and this is one thing that me and Soren have talked about off camera. This is a true diss record in the sense that he doesn't just diss Canibus. He takes a piece of Mike Tyson. He disses Wyclef. The first line he says in March, the lady's placenta, dissing Wyclef. He goes and he talks about the ear biter, ass cheeks black and blue. He's going just
the Bob Marley imposter,
bro. The Bob Marley imposter, and then he says, wait for the studio audience to applaud. Like, every single clever, witty line that Canibus threw at him that you thought would get LL literally took it back and destroyed him and flipped it. And LL Cool J's song, and this is important because you said Canibus has so much material to go off. He has like a 15-year career essentially to go and break down and to find weak holes and to attack LL. LL can only reference like a year or two, and he somehow made a 5+ minute song and just destroyed. And then he even mentions the dude. It's just, oh my god.
He even mentions what Amir said.
Just the E. And he didn't even mention the worst line in Canibus' song where he's talking about, you ain't got the skills to eat a brother's ass like me, which LL could have just, it's just too much. So, it's too much. And I like the beat by Trackmasters too.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is that LL just showed you how and why he should be revered in the upper echelon of rapping. because regardless of who you want to say is the best, LL came out with his first album in '85. In '98, 13 years later, 14 years later, you have to realize people weren't, rap had evolved so much since '85, since when LL came out, you know. Think of that who came out from '85 to '98. You got all of NWA, you got the Midwest and the South coming out, rising to prominence, you got Bone, you got Outkast, you got Biggie, you got all these different sound styles, everything going on, Ice Cube, dude, and LL is right there at that time delivering a slaughter that he barely promoted and they just threw out there, and the people that heard it. Whereas to Amir's point, Canibus was banking his whole career off of Second Round Knockout, but then to make the weird decision to have Mike Tyson on it, when at that time Mike Tyson had fallen out of favor. Obviously he was still respected and people loved him and appreciated who he was, but he wasn't the Mike Tyson of the late 80s and the early 90s to where he was revered as like a god. This was Tyson in '98, and I think Mike Tyson is phenomenal in every way, but the general public in '98 wasn't looking at Mike Tyson the way that we do now or the way that we did during his prime. And then the aligning yourself with Wyclef, who I believe is phenomenal and who I believe is an excellent underrated producer. At the same time, he's also not the guy that's probably going to bring out the best in your diss record, in my opinion. So Canibus just made a series of big mistakes, in my opinion, and then LL looked at and studied and dissected this song and just annihilated them. And basically, even though LL's song, most people didn't really focus on it that much or care, I think the sad point, and to make the point even bigger, is that they didn't have to, because Canibus's career was essentially, he, at that point, people weren't checking for him that much because they didn't like his album. And that ended his career, and then LL just kind of like, you know, released that song, and then it was a problem, man.
Well, LL said career will be over in a year. Yeah, I said it. He said it in the song.
Yeah.
And although, yeah, Canibus has went on to release a ton of albums after, and I actually like Canibus's music. I bought a lot of his albums after, so I like a lot of his material. But, you know, that buzz was gone. Yeah. And LL, man, and it's kind of like you're in grade school and you got the 5th grader here and he's holding the ball up and the 1st grader's just trying to come and get it. It's like, this is LL's game. You can't take that. This is him, dude. This is right. He's done these battles. He's done everything. How can you even come and it's kind of just like you thought you had it, but no, you didn't have it.
No,
and this is where the grown folks play, bro. This is
this is the major leagues,
dude.
The NBA, the NFL, whatever league you want to call it, and Canibus did not belong there. And for those that have seen some of my interviews or heard me talk, or even they've asked me, you know, LL, in my opinion, is the best rapper of all time, and I don't think it's really close because he's existed in at least the recorded era. He's existed in every era. He's existed doing every type of song over a wide range of beats, every subject matter, wide range of producers, wide range of collaborators, or by himself. And I know most people don't have this benefit, but I've also had the benefit of being in the studio with him within the last couple of years and just hearing him sound like it's 1987 doing Bigger and Deffer. It's just astonishing. And you know, you hear a lot of rappers from the 80s or even the 90s coming out and they sound dated. They don't sound like they could exist and thrive right now, and LL can and does. And most people thought that in '98, and now it's 2020. And in '98, people thought Canibus had destroyed him with Second Round Knockout. They were kind of like, ha ha ha. And then LL came back and just destroyed him. And LL literally laughed at him on the song. Like, he's laughing. And there's a reason for that, because he destroyed him, in my opinion. So that's what I think. That's what Amir thinks about these 2 tracks that are pivotal in understanding the old and the new and what happens with rappers and everything. But let us know what you guys think about Second Round Knockout and The Ripper Strikes Back, LL Cool J vs. Canibus. I'm Soren Baker.
Amir, Rahimi.
And make sure to share, like, subscribe, and tell your people about this debate. We're interested to hear what you guys think.
Definitely.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
There will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
What's that 5 on Yo MTV Back with NWA?
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.